Live from the Jersey Shore to the world. Get up, get out, do something. Wake up with Jeremy Grunin. Take the show wherever you go. Download the free Radio Pup app for your smartphone or tablet. Join the conversation. 732-505-1160. News Talk Radio WOBM AM 1160 and 1310. Listen online at WOBMAM.com.
Hey, welcome back. 6:08, 34 degrees, heading up to 49 today on WOBM AM 1160 and 1310 News Talk Radio. Streaming live on your Radio Pup app and at WOBMAM.com. You can join the conversation at 732-505-1160. And the conversation now turns to schools, education, and specifically Toms River Regional Schools. And with us in the studio, we have David Healy. He is the superintendent of the Toms River Regional Schools. Good morning.
Good morning, Jeremy.
And I was telling Dave before we got back, you know, whenever I'm in front of somebody involved with the schools, my first inclination, because I've been so programmed, is to call him Mr. Healy, because, you know, he's like my teacher, even though, you know, I know I have issues. You guys know I see somebody on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and, you know, hopefully they'll be able to help me through some of these issues. Anyway, Dave, thank you so much for joining us. You know, I know that we are in year 2, right?
Yes.
All right. So and I think now that you've kind of gotten your, you know, as somebody I work with would say, now that you've gotten your kind of legs and feet clearly under the desk and you're ready to go, why don't you kind of refresh everybody about what your background is, where you came to us from, and kind of really how you got involved in education, which I think is really exciting.
Sure. Well, that goes back many, many years, but I'll give you the last 10. Well, I was a teacher, assistant principal, a principal, then became the assistant superintendent for operations and personnel for the Middletown School District. And then from there, I took a position in Matawan as the superintendent of schools. I was there for almost 4 years. The opportunity in Toms River came up. I gave it a lot of thought. I didn't jump on it right away, but I'm glad I did. And so I'm here in Toms River, and it's exciting to be here. Great.
Well, and listen, so I am proud to say I have 3 children in the Toms River schools, and they all love it. They're all doing really well. And, you know, I certainly spend a lot of time with teachers and parents on the soccer field. So I think the overall feeling is that the schools are certainly heading in the right direction, making positive turns, you know, as we keep moving forward. And so, by all accounts, great job so far. So
thank you.
We need to we do need to address some of the important issues, though. So let's get right into it, right? So, park, right? The park testing. We know we've heard a lot about the fact that kids seem to spend a lot of time fixing to get ready to take tests. So, you know, there have been more and more discussions about the ability to opt out of it and what that means for finances for the school districts. How do you feel about park testing? You know, what do you think it's a necessary evil, or are you, you know, do you not like it? Where are you?
Well, I mean, it's a test that we're required to implement. Standardized tests have been around for a long time. In my career, standardized tests have come in very handy, almost a necessity in terms of gauging our students. When you have a district this large, for example, you have 12 elementary schools, you need some kind of a standardized test data to see what you're doing in terms of all your work. And if you're doing it at all 12 schools, what schools are doing it best. And so the standardized test gives you information, a lot of different information regarding how well students perform in all the areas. And it also gives you information on subgroups. So special needs populations, socioeconomically disadvantaged populations, minorities, females, males. And that information is very important as we use that data to drive our decision making. Is the park test the end-all, be-all? It's what's in place right now. I know that the Department of Education, when they first implemented it, they realized there were some things that they could do better. They got a lot of feedback from the community as well as educators. They went back to the drawing board. They made some adjustments. They reduced the time of the test. Only one session. There's no end-of-year course, or rather end-of-year testing. So they've made some adjustments. So we'll see where it goes from now. I think you have to give it a chance, and then at the end of the day, we'll make a decision, or the state will make a decision on what direction they want to go.
Cool. Yeah, and listen. So for what it's worth, I agree with you. I think standardized testing is important. I look. We used to take the Iowa test or whatever test there was at the time, and I think we've just kind of entered a society now where it's easy for us to complain about almost anything with social media, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that there is a movement afoot that says, less testing, more education. But to your point, how do you then check mark where you are? How do you understand what you need to do better, what you need to do differently? So great points. I'm with you. Yeah,
it doesn't take the creativity out of the classroom for the teacher. The teacher still has that opportunity to develop their own teaching styles, and we have some great teachers doing that as we speak. Right. When HESPA was in place and ASK was in place, I used that data extensively to look at patterns and trends over 3 years to see what we were doing right and what we needed to improve upon. So that's really what we anticipate doing with Park. Whether it's the right test or not, we'll find out.
Okay. And listen, you can't talk Park without talking Common Core. So you talk about creativity in the classrooms. We know that there have been some changes made to some of the requirements around Common Core. How do you feel in general? I think that there is. Again, I'll give you my personal opinion first, which is I believe that there needs to be some kind of a baseline. There needs to be some kind of a set of standards for teachers. But I don't know if Common Core is perfect. I think we continue to make improvements. But where are you on Common Core?
Well, I'm with you in that. Do we know if it's perfect? But 42 states have adopted it, and experts and teachers from across the country designed it to ensure that the students are prepared for today's entry-level careers, freshman-level college courses, and workforce programs. So it's in place. It's being utilized. I know that there are concerns and questions regarding it throughout the state and throughout the country, but it provides a way for teachers to measure student progress throughout the school year and ensure that the students are on the pathway to success in their academic careers. It still allows teachers to be creative in their classrooms and develop their own teaching styles. I'm in and out of all our classrooms regularly, interacting with students and teachers, and I can see that creativity at work, and it's just wonderful to see. It's not, people like to say it's teaching to the test. You're teaching to the standards. They exist, but the teachers do an outstanding job to implement their own unique styles in the classroom and keep students interested.
Great. Okay. Yeah. And again, so good points. I think any conversation around education, and we talked to Rob Bonafreddi a couple weeks ago where we talked about some of the same issues. I think we can all agree that there need to be standards. There need to be minimum requirements in place. I think that you're always going to have your top 1% of teachers and educators that aren't going to love any kind of standards. But frankly, to me, in any organization, you're not managing to the top 1%. You're managing to the mean. You're managing to the median, and making sure you can kind of raise the standard of all folks. When we come back, because we're up against a break, when we come back, I do want to ask you on two important other topics. One of them, big in the news right now, charter schools and how you feel about charter schools, and then the other thing is school openings. There's been a lot of talk about school opening times and pushing it back so our kids could sleep in a little more, spend less time out and about in the middle of the afternoon. We're with David Healy, Toms River Regional Schools. We'll be right back after this.
Get more Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin at our website, WOBMAM.com. News Talk Radio, WOBM AM 1160 and 1310.
The only problem I have when there's somebody in the studio with me is it totally cuts into my nap time in between breaks. But anyway, 621, 34 degrees, WOBM AM 1160 and 1310, and streaming live on the Radio Pup app and WOBMAM.com, 732-505-1160. If you have anything you want to ask or talk to Superintendent Toms River Regional Schools, David Healy, who is with us. So, Dave, when we left, we were talking a little bit about charter schools. I know there's certainly been a lot of discussion around charter schools in Red Bank. The fact that the charter school in Red Bank isn't necessarily representative of the racial and ethnic breakdown in Red Bank Commons. There was also been talk. Chris Christie has committed the fact that he wants to grow charter schools over the next couple of years to have something like 50,000 kids enrolled in charter schools. Toms River has not had a charter school. I don't know that necessarily Toms River is primed for a charter school. How do you feel about charter schools and the proliferation?
Oh, like anything, charter schools have value, but then again, there's some criticism with regarding charter schools. They're publicly funded, but they operate independently from the school system. I can see them, they have value in some of the more challenging urban settings where students that are serious and focus more on academics have an opportunity to enter into a school district where a charter program where they can excel without some of the typical distractions that are in some of those challenging communities. But also, I think the charter school system is misused as well. So it depends on what end of that system you're at, whether you like it or not, or whether it benefits the community or your child. Toms River is not a school district that I would say would need a charter school. We have great schools here. There's opportunities for all children, and our schools operate incredibly well with very few problems or distractions. And It's a very student-centered, child-centered community. Cool.
So while we're talking student-centered and child-centered, let's hop over to one of the new initiatives. I have a special place in my heart for the Freshman Academy. Since I have a high school freshman at Toms River High School South, he's had very positive experiences so far in the Freshman Academies. I don't know that folks necessarily have a full understanding of what that program is and what you've introduced this year. Can you tell people a little bit about the Freshman Academies?
Sure. The Freshman Academy is not similar to a career academy. What it is it's a school within a school for freshmen, developing cohorts of students and groups. The freshman year is arguably the most pivotal year in a child's academic career, and ninth grade is where students are going to go on a path to success or failure or dropout. So it's very important to have a program in place where those students, when they come in, they're not alone. They're part of a group, especially when you talk about the size of our schools, High School North with 2,400 students. You come in as one of 2,400 students. That's no longer the case. You come in, you're part of a team. You have a team of advisors, a team of teachers, counselors, administrators, and you function as one team. You have a group of teachers that are dedicated to those freshman students, and they collaboratively plan and they discuss strategies on how to best support their cohort of students. And there's a whole series of activities developed around the Freshman Academy programs. It gives the students a sense of affiliation and community working together towards one goal. And really the most important thing is it sets the trend for subsequent school years. So as those students enter into the sophomore year and junior year and senior year, they start being the leaders of that school. And as the incoming students enter the following year, they look around and they see what's everybody else doing, and they realize that this is how, these are the expectations, these are the routines, and they follow them. But the data is incredibly clear. We implemented in Mattawan, and the results were unbelievable in the areas of attendance and failures, dropouts, discipline issues. We saw improvements anywhere from 70%, 50% reductions in absenteeism by 60%. The failure rates went down immediately. And those cohorts of students, as they entered into their sophomore and junior years, you continue to see that pattern of excellence. And in fact, in Mattawan, that freshman cohort, when they reached their junior year, they were the highest scoring students on the HESPA. They went up 7 points on language arts literacy. It was the first time that had happened. We're seeing amazing things happen in Toms River. The reports that come back from Mr. Coleman, our assistant superintendent of secondary, and our principals at all 3 high schools, it's just being very well received by the students and the teachers and the parents.
Great. We're here with David Healy, superintendent at Toms River Regional Schools. Feel free to join the conversation, 732-505-1160. While you're talking about retention, we have just a minute or two left. While you're talking about retention, one of the programs that I know you guys have implemented in a partnership right now between Toms River High School North and Walnut Street Elementary is a Big Brothers Big Sisters mentoring program. So you've been talking about retention, and you're talking about kind of making sure that kids stay in school and attendance goes up, et cetera, et cetera. Tell us just for a minute. Actually, don't tell us for a minute about that program. That's the music. We'll talk about that program when we come back. We also want to talk about school opening times. I know that's been a big topic here in Toms River, as all 3 of my kids are getting ready to get on their bus or get their ride to school right now. We are here with David Healy, Toms River Regional Schools. Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin, 732-505-1160. Be right back.
Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin. News Talk Radio WOBM AM 1160 and 1310. Live from the Bob Levy Broadcast Center overlooking the Toms River. It's time to get up, get out, do something. Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin. Be a part of the show, 732-505-1160. News Talk Radio WOBM AM 1160 and 1310. Listen online at WOBMAM.com.
Hey, welcome back. 633 WOBM AM 1160 and 1310 News Talk Radio. Streaming live in the Radio Pop app and WOBMAM.com. 34 degrees, heading up to 49 today. 732-505-1160 if you want to join the conversation. Here with David Healy, superintendent of Toms River Regional Schools, largest suburban school district in the state. That was exhausting. All right. So when we went away, we were talking about the Big Brothers Big Sisters mentoring program between Walnut Street and Toms River High School North. You could certainly speak better than I can on it, so why don't you talk a little about what's going on there?
Sure. Well, I'm going to give you a plug on this one, Jeremy.
Yes.
Jeremy approached me and had made a suggestion that we look into develop a partnership with Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and the Grunin Foundation would pay for the costs. So I met with Sue Sedovac along with my team, and long story short, we have a program implemented at our Walnut Street School, approximately 60 students. They're referred to as littles. I'm learning all this Big Brother, Big Sister lingo, but they're referred to as littles, and they partner up with mentors from High School North, and they're referred to as bigs. And, those are some of our most at-risk, vulnerable students that now are paired up with adult mentors, high school mentors, and those students are receiving some extra care in terms of attention, support, and the research is pretty clear on the impact on those students long term. And we're looking to expand that program, as you know, into the other schools. But that's just one of the many programs that we've implemented in our schools, K through 12, referred to as intervention programs. Early intervention is key. So we've improved our intervention and referral service program. We partnered with Preferred Behavioral Health. We've got the great program with the prosecutor's office and the police and the sheriff's department. That's been around, and that's an outstanding program with 3 of our valued partners in law enforcement. We have the Lead and Seed program, DART and St. Barnabas, and then also the Positive Behavioral Supports program that we're supported through the New Jersey Department of Education. And there's just so much more. Freshman Academy is an intervention program, not an intervention program, but it's a program really to improve culture and climate within our buildings and give those kids supports, because the culture and climate in any organization is the cornerstone of all organizations. And if we're spending many dollars on technology, curriculum, instruction, and we're not working on the foundation of culture and climate in terms of attendance and absenteeism and behavior and supervision, those things tend to be challenging in terms of fully implementing and having the success we'd like to have. And I'm pleased to report that those intervention programs are doing wonderful things, and we're going to report to the community on some of those results.
Great. So while we're talking about reporting to the community on results, how's full day kindergarten going? I know that's a new thing for Toms River Schools. It was one of your major priorities when you got here. What do the early returns look like?
The early returns are amazing, and both on paper, but also my on-site visual experiences with my team. I've gone through at least once every kindergarten program for 5, 10 or more minutes at least, interacted with students and teachers, and the thing that's just really assuring and refreshing is that our teachers have embraced it. Those teachers that are in those programs want to be in those programs. They want to be with 5-year-olds all day long. They collaborate in a number of ways, including Google Docs, to make sure that their lessons are consistent, not only throughout their schools, but also through all through 12 of our elementary schools. You have to keep in mind that we have curriculum programs with Readers and Writers Workshop and Everyday Math that are done consistently through now all 12 of our elementary schools, K through 5. So when those 12 schools funnel into 3 intermediate schools, those 6th grade teachers are getting students that have been prepared very similarly and not in 12 different ways or more, depending on what school they've been in. And that's really important, the consistent implementation of best practices in the area of curriculum instruction. So, but the full day kindergarten, we implemented that, no cost, and I'll be questioning that, but no cost to taxpayers. We kept it under the 2% increase to the tax levy. And the way we were able to do that is we had some low class sizes. So I had implemented this program in Middletown. Prior to even being hired through the interview process, that was one of the questions, and I said I could absolutely do it because I had done my research with Toms River Schools and enrollment counts, and I had studied all the performance reports on each school. And what we were able to do is we were able to consolidate classes. So if we had, for example, 5 5th grade classrooms with 15 students, we could reduce them to 3 or 4 and not increase above 20 students. So what we had was saves. We ended up finding 23 saves. 23 saves. Those weren't new positions. All the positions for those kindergarten programs were not outside what the budget. They weren't budget increases. And if you multiply 23 times $80,000, I think that's roughly $1.7 million that the district didn't incur and the taxpayers didn't incur. We spent a lot of time on the registration, on the training for our kindergarten teachers, both in the spring and the summer and in the fall, implemented the curriculum, set up the classrooms. They're all the same, so they have all the various stations so that students can implement or the teachers can implement guided reading, listening stations, independent reading, all those great things. I invite you, give me a call. I invite you to walk with me through a few of them, and you'll just be amazed. You'll see. Last time I was in there last month, we have 5-year-old kids reading at grade 1 or grade 2. So I always tell the first grade teachers, next year I want you to report back to me on what this group of students is like in terms of how much differentiation of instruction are you doing now, or are all the students coming in prepared? And one very, very important point to make is that when you have a school district as big as Toms River that's very socioeconomically diverse, prior to this full-day kindergarten, those families that couldn't afford a full-day program outside of the school district because we only had a half-day program really were limited to a half-day program, and those families that could afford it had a full-day program. So now the playing field is leveled. Those students are entering first grade with all the same opportunities, and those subsequent years with things like basic skills programs and being referred to a child study team for additional costs to the district, and more importantly, those students falling further behind, those things are going to be reduced dramatically.
Great. Well, listen, I would love to tour with you. My wife would tell you that she feels like she spends her day all day with a 5-year-old as well. But, of course, our kids are older. I think she's referring to me, I'm pretty sure. So that's great. And again, nothing but positives there. So turning our attention for a second to a hot button issue around, we only have a minute here, but I know that it's been a big topic around school opening times. I know that there, folks will point to some studies that show that kids who get to sleep in a little more are less likely to do bad things on the back end, et cetera, and their grades get better. Where are we on that? What's your feeling?
Well, my feeling is that there are a lot of studies on it. They've been presented to me. There has been some community members that have been outspoken about it, and certainly don't disagree with them. But there are challenges associated with changing times in a 4-tier system such as Toms River. We start at 7:15 Tier 1, which I believe is early. It would be nice to go to 7:30. At the very least, our intermediate north school, which is on a Tier 1, it would be nice to get them to a Tier 2.
Right.
But there are a lot of challenges when you have a school district this large that feeds, for example, the Ocean County Vocational School along with Brick and Jackson. They're all on the same schedule.
Right.
And to bump any one of the tiers, you may have school going till 4 o'clock or beyond. To flip-flop, moving elementary with secondary, you run into things with athletics and after-school activities and childcare, and a lot of our students work after school. It doesn't mean that it can't be done, but we've looked into it. We've met with the non-publics. That's a whole nother piece where we have several hundred students that go to non-publics, and their schedules are in place. And then also the costs associated in minimally, you're talking about purchasing additional buses and drivers. Right. But we have a transportation study that's about 90% done. We're waiting on the Versatrans report, and once that study comes in, we'll be better be able to assess our transportation system. Which, by the way, the preliminary studies are great, and we'll be able to see if we can do something like that. If not for one. If not for all, but at least maybe one school.
That's great. David Healy, Superintendent at Toms River Regional Schools. When we come back, we're going to talk about the short circuit robotics team. Super exciting STEM-type stuff in Toms River Regional Schools. Be right back.
Stay tuned for Preferred Company with Joel Markell and Marianne Levy at 8. Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin continues next. News Talk Radio WOBM AM 1160 and 1310.
650 WOBM AM 1160 and 1310, and streaming live on the Radio Pup app and at WOBMAM.com. 34 degrees, heading up to 49 today. Totally feel free to wear your tank tops, T-shirts, shorts, flip-flops, whatever. 732-505-1160. We are talking to David Healy, Superintendent, Toms River Regional Schools. When we left, we were starting to talk about the fun stuff. So, Short Circuits Robotics Team. I know we have multiple robotics teams right now attending competitions. So, all part of the movement of STEM and STEAM in our schools. So, Dave, why don't you tell folks about what you have going on with the robotics program and stuff like that?
Sure. Well, Susan Signorelli, teacher at High School East, she began a robotics club, after-school robotics club, and they were represented at our fall Makerfest event. And I had an opportunity to speak with her and get a full understanding of what the program entailed. Moving forward, the board and the administration made a recommendation to the board. The board is funding 3 programs at 3 high schools, and we have a number of students participating. And this past Sunday, we competed against 34 other teams at the Snow Day Showdown held at Hightstown, New Jersey High School. And the Raiders, which is the Toms River East Short Circuits, was paired with 5 different teams to form alliances to perform in 5 different matches. And we're pleased to report out of those 34 teams, and this is their first competition, didn't have a lot of time to prepare, but they placed 5th, winning 4 of its 5 matches, even though this was their first competition. So they advanced to the semifinal round, and based on their 5th place finish, but unfortunately they were defeated in the semifinals. But considering the other schools that had been doing this for several years, our Toms River High School teams performed incredibly well, and it's a testament to the advisors, Mrs. Signorelli, Mrs. Applegate, Mr. Panalunas, but also our supervisor of educational technology has been assisting them, Mrs. Lucy, and she attended the event over the weekend, and then our assistant superintendent of operations, Dr. Natanagara, who's a technology enthusiast. He was there. He wouldn't have missed it. So we were well represented, and it's the future of the direction we're going district-wide.
And from what I understand, High School North finished 8th in that competition.
Yes, and they did. And
okay.
I'm sorry I neglected that. I don't want to give...
It's not your fault.
Yes.
I just have little birdies that are texting me and Facebooking me to make sure that High School North gets their props as well. So.
Yes, High School North needs to get their props, and they're in my notes here, and I was working my way out. But thanks for bringing that to my attention.
No problem. So what else do we have going on STEM-wise? I know you were talking about partnerships you have with NavAir, which works with the Joint Base. I know we were talking about Ocean County College, et cetera. I don't think folks really understand. It's very hip to talk about STEM, to talk about STEAM, to talk about these new programs. I don't necessarily think everybody understands what it is that they're really talking about. They know that they want it, but they don't know what they have. So what do we have right now going on in the schools?
Sure. For those listeners that don't know what the acronym STEM or STEAM, science, technology, engineering, math, and then recently we've added art. So that's STEAM. But what we have, and much of it is technology-based. It's cooperative learning. It's hands-on learning. It's learning through doing. It's incorporating technology into engineering. And really that's the direction many high schools and colleges and universities are developing these programs, because that's where the demands are in the workforce. So as far as Toms River, we've invested a lot of money in the last couple of years just in educational technology, in terms of, for example, 4,500 Chromebooks, 500 projectors. We've increased bandwidth, and we've increased the infrastructure and document cameras. I mean, the list goes on and on. I have it in front of me. It's quite huge. But we upgraded the internet from a 90 megabytes to 500 megabytes. The Google.
You're good.
I can.
Yeah, you're doing great.
Yeah, and for example, the Google Apps environment, we have 16,000 students and 2,000 staff accounts that are involved in Google Apps. So, but in terms of STEM or STEAM, we have a $60,000 funding source in Office Depot. They funded a program over at one of our intermediate schools, and we plan on having 3 career academies in our high school. September 2017, we began the legwork on that, one of which will be a STEAM academy at our high school east.
Awesome. David Healy, Toms River Regional School Superintendent, year 2. My goodness, I got to say, the amount that we have, like I had something to do with it, the amount that has been implemented by you and your team, the Board of Ed, where we have come from 2 years ago is unbelievable. I can only imagine where we're going to end up 2 years from now. You guys are doing a great job. There's always, we know there's always room for improvement. We can always do more for our kids, for the 16,000 plus kids that... I'm okay. For the 16,000 plus kids. Well. Anyway, listen, thank you so much, Dave. I appreciate your time this morning. We look forward to having you back soon.
Jeremy, I just want to thank you. I mean, we've gotten to know each other the last year and a half, but your enthusiasm, your interest in the school community, our kids, your passion, the foundation's passion, I just look forward to the working relationship, because I know it's just going to benefit all of us.
Awesome. Back with Mark Wilson from OCC after this.
Coming up next, the latest from WOBM News, the Town Square, New Jersey News Network, and Fox News Radio. Wake up with Jeremy Grunin. News Talk Radio, WOBM AM 1160 and 1310.